The 3,200-meter target was nearly lost in the swirling, harsh sandstorm. This Barrett M107 test was exceptionally rare. Small, quiet logistics technician Riley Dawson calmly set the bipod of the 50-caliber rifle into place. Arrogant General Harrington laughed loudly, delivering an insult. "The Barrett is not a toy. Go back to your post. Don't waste time counting her score." Riley shrugged off her technical jacket. The legendary single silver badge on her chest glittered. A young soldier whispered in awe, "Sir, that's the 3,200-meter badge. The Reaper badge, only one person was ever awarded it." Her name was Riley Dawson. She was 31 years old. Her official role was Small Arms Arsenal Logistics Technician at Falcon Ridge Base. Her primary job responsibilities were thankless and physically demanding: hauling ammunition, maintaining the Barretts, repairing scopes, and clearing out the armory storage. Everyone ignored her efforts. The majority of the combat soldiers viewed her simply as the timid maintenance girl, a non-essential cog in the machine. They saw her only as inventory control. Riley rarely spoke. She avoided confrontation and hardly ever reacted to the constant, casual stream of sarcasm and mockery about her size and role. Her daily routine was a monastic practice. Zoro 500, check the armory log, Ilajiro 600, personally clean the firing pins and gas systems of the heaviest rifles. Doan 800, haul the day's 50 caliber ammo crates. She meticulously checked the chronometer on every muzzle, logging the velocity drift with an obsessive attention to detail that only a true ballistician would understand. But unknown to all of them, she was constantly and silently observing the entire firing range. She meticulously mapped the complex wind vectors, the subtle thermal shifts caused by the sun, and the fatal, common bad habits of every single shooter. A sergeant once loudly scoffed, "Her holding a Barrett, she'd probably be knocked backward into the sand and break her neck." Riley had on one occasion averted a major, potentially lethal accident. She had managed to catch a slipping rifle from a panicked rookie, preventing a live round from accidentally firing just inches from a crew member. The credit for the save was immediately and unjustly dismissed. The sergeant claimed the rookie was just clumsy, and Riley's intervention was overzealous, suggesting she exaggerated the danger. Every time the desert sun was at its most brutally intense, Riley would quietly and secretly place extra cold water bottles, sometimes spiked with electrolyte powder, near the firing lanes. A selfless act she never once boasted about or claimed credit for. Every single night, she stayed late in the armory. She meticulously checked every barrel that was carelessly left dirty, running patches until the bore was mirror clean. She treated the firearms as if they were fragile objects more precious than her own life. One curious soldier, trying to steal a smoke break, once peered into Riley's locker and recoiled instantly. He saw a long, jagged, angry-looking scar running from her shoulder blade down her back. A wound that did not look like any common training accident or domestic injury. The scar was a constant reminder of the shrapnel she took while placing a satchel charge to collapse a ridgeline, effectively cutting off the enemy's pursuit during the disastrous Operation Aram. Riley always avoided direct, pointed questions like, "Did you ever see combat tech?" She only ever offered the same neutral reply, delivered with maximum distance. "I am logistics support, Corporal. Stick to your lane." Her face was consistently quiet and unassuming, but her eyes carried the deep, ingrained weariness of someone who had survived far too many moments on the razor-thin edge of life and death. That profound, almost ancient exhaustion was her true uniform. She knew with certainty that if the general or anyone else discovered her true identity, the quiet peace she had built in the armory, her sanctuary, would be instantly shattered. She had specifically requested this remote, forgotten base, thinking her skills and past would remain buried under the sand and endless inventory sheets. But the annual test, ironically, was the one mandatory event she couldn't dodge, the one time her name had to be on the roster for base accountability. The shadow of Aram, she often woke up cold, remembering the smell of sulfur and the sand turning red under the twin suns of the Aram Desert, the mission that made her a legend and destroyed her heart. Final signature, Act 1. In the bottom of Riley's metal locker, protected by a piece of cloth, was a deeply folded old photo. She was standing amidst a small, tight-knit special operations team against the backdrop of the blazing red Aram Desert. Two figures in the photo had been brutally torn away, and one of the torn faces had a distinct scar across the cheek, a face that looked eerily similar to General Harrington. The annual long-range shooting assessment this year was the most critical event of their calendar. Any soldier who failed the demanding qualification would be immediately removed from the base's elite quick reaction force, a humiliation that would follow them for life. General Harrington had only recently taken command. He was known for his short temper, his overwhelming focus on superficial appearances, and a fierce, almost toxic arrogance. He was determined to prove his leadership by aggressively cleaning out all the weak links. Harrington's own history was one of calculated climbing. He was a great politician, a decent administrator, but fundamentally lacked true field empathy or a deep understanding of practical specialized skills like extreme long-range ballistics. He was obsessed with results, not process. When Riley hauled a final crate of heavy-caliber ammunition onto the range, the general delivered a sharp, cold jab loud enough for the entire unit to hear. "The women belong in the armory, technician. Do not contaminate the firing zone with your amateur presence. Your job is to count rounds, not waste them." The group of young soldiers laughed loudly, eagerly echoing his dismissive sentiment, desperate to curry favor with the powerful new general. They failed to notice the cold efficiency with which Riley placed the crate, instantly calculating its maximum weight and distribution to ensure it wouldn't shift the earth near the firing points. The wind conditions rapidly deteriorated, a sudden, brutal shift from a steady tailwind to a complex, swirling crosswind known locally as the Falcon Vortex. It was a meteorological nightmare. This chaotic change in atmosphere caused a cascade of failures. A high number of soldiers missed the 2,500, 2,000-meter targets entirely. The air was thick with the scent of burnt gunpowder and deep, agonizing failure. The sound of missed shots hitting the ground short was a drumbeat of despair. Riley watched the chaotic scene in total silence. She never offered any advice. Her ingrained habit was to quietly absorb and map every movement and fluctuation without ever interfering. She was measuring the wind velocity, temperature, and Coriolis effect in her mind, creating a real-time, three-dimensional ballistic solution. One soldier, a proud marksman named Sergeant Miller, missed his 1,800-meter target by nearly 2 meters, cursing loudly. Riley knew the exact adjustment needed. 3.5 clicks left for wind drift, 0.2 clicks up for temperature change. She knew he was rushing his reset. She bit her tongue so hard she tasted blood. It was the new rookie's turn. He was shaking so badly from the overwhelming pressure that he entirely forgot to secure the safety latch on his rifle after loading the cartridge. A lethal mistake in a high-caliber weapon. Riley's hand shot out instantly, not gripping his wrist, but firmly securing the safety lever and simultaneously stabilizing the barrel, all in one seamless, lightning-fast motion, preventing a live round from accidentally firing. She made sure her movement was so fluid it looked accidental. The general did not offer a word of thanks. Instead, he whirled around and bellowed, his face red with rage. "I told you, technician, no one asked for your help. Stay back and know your damn place before I write you up for insubordination and manual interference." The general, convinced the test was a failure, decided to cut his losses. When Riley's name was finally called from the firing roster, he immediately moved to disqualify her. "You are dismissed. You will not compete in this test. We have seen enough failure today, and I won't tolerate a spectacle." Riley stood her ground firmly, her posture unwavering. Her eyes, usually dull with fatigue, were now perfectly focused, the eyes of a predator who had just been given clearance to hunt. "Respectfully, General, I am on the mandated assessment list. I will proceed with my duty to qualify, as required by Standing Regulation 307. The soldiers began whispering, their disbelief audible and spreading like wildfire. "Wait, is she actually going to shoot? She just quoted regulation at the general. This is going to be career suicide." When Riley removed her bulky, stained technical jacket to settle into the prone position, the entire rank of soldiers and officers was completely stunned into silence. Her athletic frame, usually hidden by oversized clothes, was immediately apparent. The legendary silver badge was finally exposed. Clearly etched, it was not merely a qualification. It was a testament to impossible, confirmed performance. The general's eyes locked onto the badge, but then shifted to the small, barely visible scar near Riley's hairline. A matching mirror image to the scar on the torn-out photo of the soldier he thought he had lost in Aram. A senior sergeant trembled violently as he stared at the pin. That badge. Only 2 people in the entire military history were ever officially awarded that level of skill. And the other one is dead. General Harrington went deathly still. A tiny, unique identifying code near the badge's edge was the exact same signature he had personally applied 8 years ago, during the disastrous covert operation where he believed all his best snipers had perished. Riley then quietly pulled a brittle, folded map from her pocket, a hand-drawn sketch of the Aram Desert operation with the exact location where her team vanished marked in faded red ink. The same map he had thrown away years ago, convinced it was useless. He realized the scar on the cheek of the torn photo belonged to the mission commander, Riley. General Harrington's face turned absolutely ghastly. He stammered incoherently, gripping the edge of the table for support, his polished facade cracking wide open. His political career flashed before his eyes. No, it's absolutely impossible. Commander Dawson was KIA. They were all reported as killed in action. Every single one of them. I signed the paperwork myself. Riley answered him with chilling, quiet finality, her eyes fixed on the distant 3,200-meter target. Except for one, General. You failed to account for one, and that one signed the after-action report that documented your failure to provide extraction. A massive commotion broke out instantly among the ranks, a wave of shock and disbelief. The Reaper of Distance, the mythical, ghost-like sniper believed dead for years, the one the veterans whispered about, was alive and standing among them as a forgotten logistics clerk. Riley ignored the mounting chaos. She lay down on the gritty ground, the massive Barrett settling into her shoulder pocket with a practiced ease. The rifle became perfectly stable, appearing to fuse seamlessly with her body. She was breathing so slowly and deeply that her chest barely rose, a meditative, controlled state. She spoke in a low whisper, a calm warning that carried terrifying authority, her voice cutting through the general's denial. The crosswind will fully shift in 4 seconds, moving left at 7.8 knots, then a right correction. Hold for the second dip. Prepare now for a 36 MOA drop, 8 MOA windage adjustment at 18 degrees C. Crack! The first thunderous shot ripped through the air, traveling for over 4 seconds before impact, an audible silence following its immense sonic boom. The general sneered nervously, desperate to reclaim control, trying to convince himself she had failed. Nothing moved, a clean miss. I told you, technician, that distance is unreachable. A soldier looking through the high magnification spotting scope screamed, his voice raw with disbelief and terror. Bullseye, sir! Center mass! She hit dead center! The bullet passed clean through the marker hole! The first shot was not intended to hit the steel plate itself, but the minuscule 1-inch target marker taped to the plate's center. This confirmed the precise zero of the rifle and gave her the exact real-time ballistic coefficient for the day's conditions, factoring in the subtle humidity and temperature. Riley did not move. She maintained her position. The rifle barely shifted. She had already calculated the exact recoil impulse needed to land the next 2 rounds in the same spot. Crack! The second shot followed instantaneously, fired before the wind had time to settle back into its previous chaos, utilizing the exact momentum and trajectory calculated from the first shot's data. It was a shot fired with almost zero thought, pure instinct and muscle memory. A lieutenant yelled, "She just used the first round's wake. She fired within a microsecond of the last bullet leaving the barrel. The impacts are overlapping." The second shot was the test of consistency. It proved her ability to reset her breathing, control the massive recoil, and realign the optics perfectly within the 2-second window of optimal wind stability, making a double hit impossible for anyone else. It was perfection replicated. Crack! The third shot struck the 3,200-meter steel plate with such devastating power that the armor-piercing round hit the same minuscule hole from the first shot and tore the entire reinforced metal plate entirely into two separate smoking pieces, folding the metal back on itself like paper. Not a single soul on the entire range dared to even take a breath. The silence was deafening, the only sound the metallic shriek of the cooling steel. A senior officer, a respected marksman himself, murmured, his voice laced with pure awe. A 1-centimeter group at 3,200 meters. This is literally defying physics. She is the best who has ever lived, a statistical impossibility. No human has ever done that. General Harrington collapsed fully into his chair, his entire body trembling. The immense reality of the moment crushed his ego into dust. He looked 20 years older. Commander Dawson, it is truly you, the Reaper. The young soldiers who had scorned Riley now openly wept, humbled and ashamed. Ma'am, you are the legend. We owe you a lifetime apology for our blind arrogance. Riley was the former JSOC long-range team commander, an elite operative of a clandestine unit in the Aram Desert Theater. In the ambush, she used her final 3 rounds not to attack, but to destroy enemy communications, disable a heavy machine gun nest, and create a crucial, time-sensitive dust storm by hitting a specific ridgeline, allowing the Central Infantry Squad to evacuate. It cost her unit their lives because the promised extraction never arrived, a failure directly linked to Harrington's command structure. The general remembered. He remembered reviewing the mission logs and signing the official report that labeled the operation Total KIO, and covering up the strategic command failure to avoid political fallout. He had deliberately erased Riley's existence to protect his own path to power. Riley stood up slowly, her movement economical and precise, brushing the dirt from her old jacket. Her mission was accomplished, but her heart remained heavy. I didn't return to boast about my past, General. I returned to live as a quiet, ordinary survivor, honoring the promise I made to their memory. I need nothing from you except the simple respect due to a qualified soldier. General Harrington snapped to a final, perfect salute, a gesture reserved only for the most senior commanding officer. This was not a salute of rank, but of genuine, deep repentance. Riley turned to the young soldiers, her eyes connecting with every single one. True strength is never found in loudness or noise or rank. It is found in disciplined silence, in perfect control, and in the humility to know exactly what you're capable of. If you believe that the quietest people are often the strongest, comment, I believe. The environment at Falcon Ridge Base the very next day was utterly and irrevocably transformed. The atmosphere was thick with a palpable sense of respect and genuine curiosity. The young soldiers immediately stopped their constant, empty bragging and their competitive, aggressive posturing. They began training with a newfound intensity and seriousness never seen before, recognizing the profound difference between competence and mastery. A constant stream of soldiers, both junior and senior, approached Riley respectfully, their hands clasped behind their backs. Commander Dawson, would you please teach us your wind reading techniques? We need to know how to calculate for the Falcon Vortex. Riley agreed, but she immediately changed the curriculum. She instructed them one by one, demonstrating an almost inhuman patience and calm with every struggling soldier. She began the very first lesson, not at the firing line, but in a quiet room, focusing solely on the diaphragm. Riley made them lie flat and place their hands on their stomach. You do not shoot with your hands, she instructed softly. You shoot with your lungs. Control the breath. You control the heart. Control the heart. You control the trigger. This is the difference between a hit and a mission failure. Practice the 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, and 6-second exhale. She made it clear that she was not just teaching them how to shoot. She was teaching them how to maintain absolute composure and psychological stability when the world around them was actively falling apart. These were the skills that genuinely saved lives. General Harrington called an urgent, highly unusual all-unit meeting. He stood before the soldiers, his voice now entirely devoid of arrogance and full of genuine humility. As of today, Riley Dawson is the Senior Technical and Tactical Advisor to the Long Range Unit. Her word is law. Her mandate supersedes all non-combat field orders. If she tells you to breathe, you breathe. If she tells you to drop the rifle, you drop it. Riley responded with a small, knowing smile, addressing the entire unit. The title is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is that you all return home safely to your families. My job is to ensure that happens, by making sure you understand that your equipment is an extension of your body, not just a tool. The soldiers now gathered around the evening bonfire, sharing stories about the Reaper of Distance. But this time, the stories were told with profound reverence and respect, not just as distant, exaggerated legends. They spoke about her precision, her calm, and her sacrifice. A rookie who had been particularly cruel in his early mockery approached her, his eyes brimming with genuine tears of regret and shame. "Ma'am, I was wrong. I was arrogant. I owe you a lifetime apology for my blind disrespect." Riley simply placed a supportive hand on his shoulder, her touch firm but gentle. "Just live honorably, son. Lead with integrity and respect the dignity of every person standing next to you. Your apology is accepted. Now go practice your breathing and clean your optic lenses until they are invisible." Her quiet presence became the base's moral center, replacing the previous toxic culture of shallow ego with a foundation of earned respect and hard-won humility. The general quietly ensured Riley's compensation was immediately and officially adjusted to match her true world-class value as a high-level tactical advisor. He also personally ensured that all records related to her KIA status were corrected to honorable discharge, rewriting the lie he had protected for years. Riley still chose to wear the faded logistics jacket, but now it was universally recognized as the ultimate badge of quiet honor. Her old coat was worth more than all the medals. She quietly threw away the painful, brittle map of the Aram Desert operation. The truth was out, the burden was lighter, and the focus was now on the future. She finally felt, for the first time in 8 years, that the sacrifice of her team had been validated. If you believe in the power of kindness and humility, comment, "I will live with integrity." A few weeks later, Riley quietly returned to the armory. She resumed her daily routine of checking the firing systems and polishing the heavy bolts, as if nothing significant had ever transpired. She preferred the solitude and the familiarity of the metal and oil. But this time, when she walked the corridors, every single person, regardless of their rank or position, stood up and snapped to a sharp, respectful salute. Their respect was not demanded by rank, but earned through undeniable competence and silent sacrifice. A dedicated team of young soldiers brought their Barretts to her, no longer for repair, but for a sacred ritual. They asked her to personally verify every micro detail of their zeroing, trusting her eye implicitly over their own high-tech instruments. Riley's small, highly selective training course for the unit became the most sought-after assignment on the base. Her goal was not to create cold-blooded killers, but to install the critical skills necessary to save their own lives and the lives of their teams on future battlefields. She introduced the concept of ethical engagement. Only fire when the threat is confirmed, the target is clear, and the moral calculus favors life. General Harrington approached her one final time in the armory, looking noticeably older and far humbler. He held a small, polished box containing an official invitation sealed with the highest departmental crest. "JSOC wants you back. The Commander-in-Chief personally approved this. They need the Reaper to train the next generation." Riley gently shook her head, a peaceful, unshakable resolve in her eyes. She closed the box and handed it back to him. "My mission is complete, General. My choice is healing through mentorship here at Falcon Ridge. My conscience demands I save lives, not take them. I have found my new purpose." The general understood. He placed the box back in his pocket, nodding slowly, his eyes meeting hers, honestly for the first time. "Thank you, Commander Dawson, and thank you for saving me, too. You showed me what true command looks like." He finally acknowledged that her presence had exposed his own failure and arrogance, giving him a path toward genuine leadership rooted in truth. He offered her a partnership. He would handle the administration and political defense of the unit, and she would handle the training and moral center. Riley accepted with a quiet nod. The entire military base no longer viewed her as a mere logistics technician. They saw her as the true soul, the quiet moral compass, and the undisputed master of their unit. She was their anchor. As the next sunset painted the range, the wind whispered across the 3,200-meter badge on Riley's coat, a quiet, powerful acknowledgement of the last survivor of a profound, unforgettable legend, whose purpose had now shifted from vengeance to wisdom. The badge was no longer a monument to a tragic past, but a promise for a safer future, worn by the woman who chose peace over power. Her lessons were not just about ballistics, they were about integrity, accountability, and the absolute value of human life. The soldiers learned to respect the weight of the bullet. The general began mentoring the younger officers, emphasizing humility and field knowledge. He started every meeting by recounting the day Riley shot 3,200 meters and the lesson he learned about judging others. A final, eager group of young soldiers ran up to her, their faces focused and ready for the next lesson. "Commander Dawson, we are ready for your training. What's the lesson today?" Riley picked up the heavy Barrett M107, not to aim, but to show them the correct way to clean the muzzle brake. She smiled warmly, her eyes finally looking peaceful. "Then listen closely. This lesson is the most important one. And remember this one thing above all else. Never ever dismiss the potential or the quiet sacrifice of the person standing at the very end of the line. Their story is likely the one that saves yours. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to Single Dad Stories.